ocean, with love so wild and free. You light my soul on fire, and I'm burning with your dreams. I wanna know your heartbeat, heartbeat. Show me how your heart, the rhythm of your love is for me. I wanna know your heartbeat. Let's sing this out wherever I go. Wherever I go, whatever I lose, all I want is to be with you. Wherever I go, whatever I lose, all I want is to be with you. I want to know your heartbeat, heartbeat. Come on. Show me how your heartbeat, heartbeat. I want to know your heartbeat, heartbeat. Show me how your heartbeat, heartbeat. The rhythm of your love is for me. I want to know your How we doing today, Mosaic? I love it. So good to be together. Just want to welcome you. If this is your first time, welcome home. Such a beautiful time when we get to worship together and sing together to our God. And I just pray that you join us. And let's welcome God to move in this place. Tasted the world, see more than enough. Its promise is fleeting. Of water and wine, I emptied the cup and found myself wanting. But there is a well that never runs dry. The water of life, the blood of the vine. All I know is everything I am means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my worth, everything I need right now. All I need is you right now. Just one thing I ask, this I will see, if only to know you, to be where you are, go where you lead. My God, I will follow. The things of this world I count it as lost. Lay it all down to take up this cross. All I know, everything I am means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my worth, everything I need right now. And all I want is everything you are and love. Jesus, if my world, everything I need right now. All I need is you right now. All I need is you right now. I sing, oh, sing it out. Oh, and I sing, oh, and all I know is everything I have means nothing. Jesus, if you're not my world, everything I need right now, and all I want, everything you are and nothing. Jesus, if you're not my world, everything to me right now. And we say, and I sing, oh, oh, hey, I want nothing but to know you and to be with you, my God. And I sing, and with everything within me, I worship you. And I sing, oh, sing it out. I want nothing but to know you and to be with you, my God. And I sing, and with everything within me, I will worship you, my God.
Hey, Mosaic, can we just clap it up? Can we thank God for already being here, being present? Wow. Hey, welcome to Mosaic. Welcome to the 1 p.m. You look good. You made it. You woke up. You ate brunch, and you're here. What an incredible Sunday that we get to experience together. My name is Joe. I'm one of our pastors here, if we haven't met yet. And if you guys know, we got a special gift today, because our band, Mosaic MFC, is on tour right now, where they're all across the country. They're somewhere in the U.S. right now. And if you know anything about my man right here, Robbie, give it up for Robbie, right? That Robbie is a part of our MSC crew that's on tour, but he's here. So it's like, is this real Robbie? Is it hologram Robbie? We don't know, 2017, all right? We'll keep you on your toes. But yeah, you're here with us, right?
Yes, sir. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, your mic's not working, but we love you. Yeah. But so Robbie was like, I just want to be back, I want to be here. So he flew in just for today, and he's flying back out tonight. So incredible. So yeah, if you think of it, pray for MSC, pray for that band that is just serving and leading thousands upon thousands into the presence of God, teaching young people what it looks like to worship. So we love you, we're glad you're home. But we want to take a couple minutes, and by a couple I mean 60 seconds, and I want you to introduce yourself to somebody around you. Just have a time you tell them your name, tell them what you had for brunch, say welcome home, and then you can have a seat after you do that. Go ahead and have a seat. And we're in the middle of a really exciting time right now here at Mosaic, where last week we launched a new series called Life's Toughest Question. And Pastor Erwin gave just a phenomenal talk about Is Truth Dead? And it's been so powerful. We've had so many people responding and bringing their friends, just as we really dive in and tackle some of life's toughest questions. So I want to just continue to encourage you, invite your friends. We're going to continue this series all the way. It's a 5-week series, and it's been really special, really beautiful. But in this moment, we're going to transition, before Pastor Erwin comes and shares, we're going to transition to a time where we receive our offering, where we just prepare our hearts to give. And we just wanted to do something different today. And so with that, can you just give a warm welcome as Pastor Erwin comes to lead us?
Hey, bro. Hey, guys. Man, it's good to see you. Been in Vancouver all week. It's so nice to be back in LA. I love Vancouver. It's beautiful. It rains a lot, and it's cold. And they don't know it's cold because they think it's normal. But, I wanted to come up because we've been looking at life's toughest questions, and I normally don't come up during this time, but I'm going to pull up a couple of things. I'm going to do 2 sections of life's toughest questions. I'm going to do this one right now, and then you'll get the message on the other question in a minute. Because I was kind of surprised. I started getting questions about money in life's toughest questions. And I thought, really? Those are your life's toughest questions? But I'm going to take them seriously. So here's 2 of them I'm going to read. One is, what proportion of church income goes to community service? How do we know we are being maximally effective outside of the community of Mosaic attendees? So I'm going to go back and just deal with that for a moment. The second one is, why is there so much controversy about tithing? Some churches say we should pay 10%, and some say it's an old practice of the Old Testament. By the way, money is the only question that the person also sent the answer, and which is kind of funny. And they answered the question. They sent me the question and said, yes, we should look after the poor and needy, but a tithe is not required. Oh, you don't have a question, you have a statement. And but so that raises a question for me. So I thought, okay. And then I had lunch with someone a while back, and they said something that just has eaten away at me. I thought it was so odd. They said, how's Mosaic doing? I said, oh, we're doing great. And they said, yeah, you guys must be counting money in the back. And I go, what? They go, yeah, you must just be counting money in the back. And I go, what are you talking about? Well, it just seems like Mosaic's bringing in so much income. And I'm like, where would you get that idea? And they go, well, it just seems like you guys are killing it. And I think it's because we have people who are like paying attention to details and cleaning. And or repairing broken things. But so I'm going to give you this. This is my life's emphasis question about the offering. And since you asked, okay, what proportion of the church income goes to community service? I want you to see something. Easter, by the way, 2 weeks ago, which was awesome. We had Easter weekend, 3 locations, because we had here, Mosaic, then we had Mosaic in the tent, and then we had Mosaic at the Avalon. So we had 3 locations right here on Hollywood Boulevard. 13 gatherings. Can you imagine? We had 13 different, I did 10 of them live and 3 of them on video. And then we had 8,665 people who came to Mosaic. Isn't that awesome? That's incredible to me, because when we came here like 5 years ago, we had 300 people in the first service and 700 people at our first Easter. So we went from 700 people at Easter to 8,665. It's pretty sweet. Okay, so how do we make all this happen? See, I think what people perceive, like the question, how much of the church income goes to community service? It's almost as if the people in here are all the church people, and the people out there are like the humans. And I want you to realize something. This is what's going on at Mosaic. Next graph. Easter attendance, 8,665 people. This is how many reoccurring givers we have at Mosaic. 620. Just let that soak in just for a minute. That means 620 people are the people who together give to serve 8,665 people. Isn't it amazing? See, what's extraordinary to me about Mosaic is that there's only a few people who actually finance everything that happens. But they do it so joyfully and so generously that we're able to actually serve almost 9,000 people here on Easter, and they didn't give anything. Now, I want to go back just to one that says, lives changed by Mosaic, because somehow we missed this graph. There it is. I want you to know, since we've come here, we've had 1,684 people who follow Jesus in baptism, which is kind of awesome. We can clap for that. And I hate the phrase decisions, but we didn't want to put a long sentence like people who have given their lives to Jesus and been forever changed by him, who are all in, something like that. So we've had almost 9,000 people, 8,998. Come on, where are the other 2 of you? We got to have that number. And who've come to faith and have given their lives to Jesus on Hollywood Boulevard, guys. Hollywood Boulevard. I mean, where Michael Jackson still walks. This is where Star Wars roams, and it's amazing. But I want you to go back now to the graph, the bar graph. That means that we have a disproportionate number of people that we're serving. See, the interesting thing about LA is that, I don't know if you know this, but LA has not really always been open to the message of Jesus. And a lot of people didn't even think a church could work here. In fact, I've had so many people tell me that. It was a graveyard. And what I want you to realize is that there are 620 people who are carrying everything we all receive together. Now, I want you to see it from a pie chart. And the reason I've done this is because people keep telling me I'm not concrete. I don't give enough concrete information. So this is so concrete. It's like a pie chart. You cannot get more concrete than that. And now imagine if you're hungry and that's all the pizza they offered you. 7%. You'd never go out with him again. And all right. So what we have here is only 7% of the people who make Mosaic their home, their spiritual space, actually are recurring givers. That means 7% of us serve the other 93%. The reason I think this is important is because we do stuff in Malawi and Bangladesh. We serve in Thailand and India. We work in Haiti. We're actually building houses with Habitat. We're building another house this year for Habitat. I mean, it's amazing. We're helping a family have a place to live. We're building educational centers in Africa. And it's amazing how God is using our community. But I also want you to know that LA needs us to care for her. And I love the fact that we've taken this on. So now let's go to the next graph. So here's the reality check. We're not counting money in the back unless it's changed for parking. And we have 8,665 people who make Mosaic home. We have 620 of us who provide this home. Without those 620 people, Mosaic would not exist. We have 8,045 people who can just say thank you to the 620 people who make all this possible. But there's a bigger reality, and I want to go to there. Boom. We actually have 12 million people in LA. 12 million. They're our responsibility, our stewardship. This is our city. And we have 620 of us who are saying we're going to give sacrificially to make this happen. So when people ask, well, is the money being used well? I'm going, we are actually doing the miraculous together. And the reason it's like this, by the way, it's not like this across the country. In most churches, if they had 8,000 people, they would have like 6,000 givers. The reason is because, see, I don't know if you know this, but people in LA are really skeptical about God, about Jesus, about church. And so it takes a long time for a person to believe in God, then a long time for a person to believe in Jesus, then kind of a long time for them to believe in the church. And then they have to leap another huge obstacle. They have to actually believe in generosity and in giving. So that leads to the second question, which I thought was really interesting. The one that was actually answered for me and asked. All right, why is there so much controversy about tithing? Some churches say you should pay 10%. Even the language is a little tricky there. Some say it's an Old Testament practice. And then they answer, yes, we should look after the poor and needy, but a tithe is not required. That sounds so noble, but it's exactly wrong. And let me just walk you through why. See, yes, a tithe was introduced in the Old Testament. It doesn't make it Old Testament. It makes it biblical. See, let me tell you something that's in the Old Testament. Do not murder. I'm for that. I think we should keep that one, okay? See, I'm not like, oh, I'm in the New Testament now, I can kill you. And see, Old Testament, do not murder. New Testament, love your enemy. See, grace and law they have a unique relationship. Grace is always higher than the law. Grace is never less than the law. So law, do not murder. Grace, love your enemy. Law, do not commit adultery. I'm still for that one, okay? I know it's in the Old Testament, but I'm going to go ahead and keep living that one, okay? But you know what's interesting? The law says do not commit adultery, but grace says do not have lust in your heart. See how grace elevates? So the law says tithing, 10% of your income. And now we go, oh no, now we live in grace, which means I don't have to give anything. No, you can live in grace. You can give way more than 10%. You can give 20, 30, go crazy, right? You know, but generosity is never less than the law. The reason that question gets asked like that is because, let's be honest, we're just inherently greedy. And we fall in love with our stuff. We fall in love with our money, and it's hard to let go of it. And that's why Jesus says, you can't love two things. You can love God or money, but you're going to have to decide. So I'm just going to be straight up here. I'm praying for a day where those 620 givers have been joined by 8,000 people who have been served. There has to come a point where you don't just receive, you actually begin to give. Because to reach the 12 million people, to serve them, to love them, to help them find hope and meaning in their life, we need more than 620 of us giving together. So that's why I wanted to take this moment, because honestly, most of the time I get questions about money, they're always like indicting questions, like somehow the church is corrupt, you know, or we're corrupt, or we're throwing massive parties, right? We have like tigers and jaguars at our parties, and you know, and driving Lamborghinis. And look, I've worked outside for 30 years, and there were great seasons in our lives where Kim and I were pretty much the biggest givers to the church. And I'm just not gonna stomach people acting like the church uses people. We are here serving people. And it's just a handful of people doing a lot of work. So I just wanna lay it out to you. Is this life stuff a question for you? Might be. Let God break the hold of greed in your life and become a person who's generous. Because there's somebody down the street who needs to know that Jesus loves them. Somebody down the street who right now is struggling with suicide. Someone down the street who doesn't know what tomorrow looks like for them. And they need to know that they matter and that they're loved. And that's why the church is here. I actually believe what we're doing is worth our sacrifice. So that's my answer to that tough question. So let's give.
Hey, Mosaic, how we doing? All right. Thank Pastor Erwin for that. It's always important for us to hear kind of where we are as a community and capture the vision for where we are. You can give in the buckets, those of you who write checks still, whatever those things are. You can give online, mosaic.org, give in the app. You can text Mosaic to 77977. Thanks so much for your generosity.
Hey, 1 o'clock. Woo, I'm Kelly.
I'm Lawrence. It's 1 in the afternoon. You guys have been awake for like 5 hours at least. So come on, energy people, come on. Okay.
Wow. We still do checks for something, so you shouldn't make
We
fun
have
of
one
it.
check that I can't figure out how not to write anymore, actually.
Anyway, whatever.
Those are called parking
Hi,
tickets,
welcome
actually.
to Mosaic. So glad you guys are here. Whose first, second, or third time is it? Let's see your hands so we can high five you. Woo! High five them. Welcome home. We're so glad you are here. If you don't already have the Mosaic app, get it. It's so great. It can keep you connected and informed about all we're doing and all that's going on. You can send in your prayer requests. You can stay up to date with the MSC tour and what is going on with them and buy their CD. It's awesome. So get the app.
Yeah, MSC, we're so excited for all that's been going on there as they've been on the road touring. They're going to be playing in Seattle on Thursday and Portland on Friday. I'm flying up to see them. She's being an amazing mom and a wife that I love so much while I am going to see concerts. It's going to be awesome. And I'm going to be seeing my parents. Hey, my mom and dad and my aunt and my cousin are in the Seattle area watching the live stream right now on Facebook Live. Can we say hi to my family? Is that kind of cool? Can invite people. She thinks that's weird. I think it's just a great little plug. You could share the live stream, Facebook Live, YouTube. Make sure all your family and friends know what's up.
Did you connect with 41411?
No, I didn't, but you will. If you want to know what's going on around here, you want to get connected, text Mosaic to 41411. Fill out that information. We'll let you know about all the things that are coming up.
Awesome. We've been having an amazing new series, Life's Toughest Questions. We've had some great questions come, and we want your questions. So submit your questions at questions@mosaic.org. We want to hear from you and what your question is. And yeah, it's a great way to get in a question.
And then tomorrow night is the second week of crew nights. Who went to crew last week? Love that. This is the best way for you to step into community, to meet people, to get to know others all around the city. We've got, I think, a dozen locations from Hollywood to the beach to Pasadena to the valley to downtown. There's one near you. So check that out. You can get info in the app. You can also text crew nights to 41411.
We have one more song for you, and then Pastor Erwin will come. So why don't you stand with us for this last song? Thanks, guys.
Let the mountains and the ocean say your name. Let the silence and every sound speak your words. Let your heart beat and my fear break away. 'Cause you speak louder than my doubts and my pain. You're the voice that will bring us closer. You're the voice that will bring us home. Speak to us. Speak to us. You're the voice that will bring us closer. You're the voice that will bring us home. Speak to us. Speak to us. Every moment all creation draw us to you. You're the voice that will bring us home. Speak to us. Speak to us. When you set us free, and we've come to see your beauty and your glory, your everlasting love. With everything you are, you open up our heart, and you set us free. Oh, and we've come to see your beauty and your glory, your everlasting love. With everything you are, you open up our heart. You're the voice that will bring us closer. You're the voice that will bring us home. Speak to us. Speak to us. You're the voice that will bring us closer. You're the voice that will bring us home. Speak to us. 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 Speak to us.
Thank you guys so much. You may be seated. So today we continue our series, Life Toughest Questions. And last week we began with the question, does God exist? Or is truth dead? And it was connected to the question from 1966, is God dead? And today we're picking up with our second question. We receive so many questions from so many people around the world, and there's always a recurring theme. It always remains true that one of the greatest questions that we ask when it comes to God is, how can a loving God exist when there's so much suffering in the world? Does God really care? And sometimes we pose the question where it seems as if we're asking, does God exist? But what we're really asking is, does God care? Because when you peel away the conversations that you have with so many people, when a person comes to a conviction that there is no God, so often it looks as if it is simply gathering data that leads you to make an intellectual decision, but in the end you find that there's a lot of pain and disappointment, betrayal in their journey for God. Because after all, if God doesn't care, what does it matter if he exists? Yesterday was the 25-year anniversary of the LA riots. How many of you were here then? We literally moved to LA 1 month before the riots. The LA riots were the way that LA welcomed us to the city. Yesterday was that anniversary moment that lasted for 5 days, and I was looking at some of the details around that crisis. NBC News reports that there were 53 deaths, 7,000 fires, 2,383 injuries, 12,111 arrests, over $1 billion of property damage, and over 1,000 buildings destroyed. And we were told that there was a fire set every minute during the riots. And when we look at that moment, we have to step back and ask ourselves, what in the world is going on? And in moments like this is when we ask the big questions in life. And if we don't have anyone else to point to, we have to then ask, what is God thinking that he allows us to live in this way? It's kind of a curious thing, because when I've talked to people about God and suffering, they've said to me, I don't believe God exists because there's no way a loving God could exist and allow this kind of suffering. In fact, it becomes the proof that there is no God, that humans suffer. But if you just step back and say, okay, then I'll agree with you, there is no God. Is there still suffering? Well, if there is no God, there is still suffering. We may argue about whether God exists, but we're not going to argue about whether suffering exists. And if there is no God and there is still suffering in the world, we have to ask ourselves then, where does suffering come from? In some ways, we need to keep God so we have someone to blame. See, I think what's going on is that we're trying to understand human history by walking into the middle of the movie and only watching 5 minutes. Have you ever been with someone who doesn't respect movies and they made you late? I don't go to the movies with those people anymore. But in the past, I've shown up late for a movie and I missed the first 5 minutes. And have you ever just want to see a movie so bad you knew you couldn't get there on time, so you just missed the first 5 minutes, the first 10 minutes, and you never understood what was going on? Or the worst thing is when you're in a great movie and every scene actually matters and every moment is unwrapping something and you had way too much Coke. And you know you have to run. And you try to figure out, what moment do I miss? And I know I've had those moments, those strategic moments that, okay, this is the moment. I think nothing's going to happen. And I just run. And if you ever go like to ArcLight, they never put a bathroom near the theater. They put the bathroom just on the other side of multiple barricades, a river, and a volcano. And you have to run past all those obstacles to get to the bathroom where there's a mile-long line, and you're trying to get back before anything happens. And the worst thing is when you come back and the entire movie has changed direction. The film has taken on a new course and the main character is gone and you have no idea what's going on. See, I think this is how we try to understand the question of how can a loving God exist when there's suffering in the world? And there's a moment in the life of Jesus that is almost a microcosm of human history. It is the perfect engagement of the story of God and the story of us. It's in the Gospel of John, chapter 11. Most of you are familiar with the story. It says, now, a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus was now laying sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. He had to be specific because there's so many Marys. This is that Mary. And so the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one that you love is sick. I love this because this is a great starting point to begin with. You have three characters, Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. And we don't know much about them, but we learn something very quickly that's incredibly significant. Jesus loved them. And so however this plays out, whatever we step into, what we do know is the motivation of the main character, Jesus. Because sometimes you can watch a person and you can try to interpret their actions and their choices and you come to a wrong conclusion about their motives. See, I think this is what happens with God. Because we watch what's going on in the world, we see what's happening in our lives. Sometimes we experience such pain and disappointment and we've cried out to God. It's not that you didn't believe in God, it's that you did believe in God. It's not that you didn't believe enough, it's that you feel like you believe too much. And so then you wonder, well, if God actually exists, does he actually care? And I think it's critical that this story unwraps with this opening statement. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. What they knew is that Jesus loved Lazarus. And so whatever was going to happen going forward, however this was going to play out, this was not in question. Wouldn't it be wonderful to know this in your life? That no matter how your life plays out, no matter what may come, no matter what hardship you may face, what pain you may suffer, that you could always know that you are the object of God's love. Yeah, that's good. The one that you love is sick. When Jesus heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Which is really beautiful in the spectrum of the big picture. Jesus saying, there's more going on than you know. This is where you missed the scene. This is where you came in a little late. This is where you left a little early. You don't really understand. There's a bigger story taking place, and that God is actually the writer of human history, and he can take broken things and create beautiful material. But it's not that helpful when you're dying, and you need God to step in. And in verse 5 it says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. He says it again. See, John wants to be very, very clear because one thing he understands about Jesus, one thing that John wants to make sure we don't miss about who God is that God's intention toward you is love, that God's motive toward you is love, that everything God does is inspired and moved by love. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Do you ever read the Bible? You go, wait a minute, that can't be right. Here, the one that you love is sick. And then John goes on and makes sure we understand. Jesus loved Lazarus, and he loved Mary, and he loved Martha. And when he heard that he was sick, so he hung around for a couple more days. Have you ever been interrupted in your life because someone you loved had a catastrophic encounter or experience? I mean, can you imagine getting a phone call saying, your husband has just been in a car accident, they've taken him over to Huntington Memorial Hospital, and you need to get over there, and you go like, I'm cooking a roast. But I'll get there when the roast is done. Or if it was your kid, some of you are traumatized because that's the way you think your parents are related to you. But can you imagine calling your parents and saying, I just found out that I have to have open heart surgery. I just had a stroke and I'm only 17. And your dad's like, Lakers game is on. It's in the 4th quarter, and I know that it's not really a significant game because they're not going to the playoffs, but there's suffering in the world, and so I'll be there when the game is over. See, would you begin to question someone's sincerity if they didn't actually move towards you when you were in a desperate moment? And I think this is so fascinating. John goes, he loves them, he loves them, he loves them. And so when he heard that he was sick, he just stayed a couple days. No hurry. Like, hurry up. See, I think this is the problem with God. He's just sort of like moseying around. And I'm like, I need you to hurry. You ever notice that we're urgent and God's like, God has all the time in the world. But we don't. We're running out of time. We need God to move. And Jesus is just staying around doing something else. So he stayed where he was for 2 more days. And then he said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. But Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back? See, I think this is confusing them because if Jesus had moved right when he heard that Lazarus was sick, that would have made sense. You respond in urgency. You respond in a crisis. And sometimes you find a level of courage that is unexpected because you respond to a moment that needs you. But Jesus didn't seem to bring urgency to this moment because he just stayed for 2 more days. Now he says he's going to go, and they're going, I don't know if it's worth the risk. Isn't that where they want to kill you? In other words, that is where they want to kill you. We don't really want to go there. And Jesus answered, oh, here's Jesus. He's so poetic. Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by this world's light. It is when a person walks at night that they stumble, for they have no light. See, I think the disciples are going, what? What? We just don't want to go. That's what we're saying. It's almost as if Jesus is saying to them, you just can't see how the story is supposed to unfold. You're trapped in the moment. You need to step back and see I'm doing something bigger. And after he said this, he went on to tell them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep. Jesus had a hard time with linguistics. He had a really hard time communicating, I'm telling you. He goes, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep. I'm going there to wake him up. And his disciples said, well, Lord, if he's asleep, he'll get better. We don't need to go risk our lives. He's just sleepy. And we don't need to wake him up. He'll wake up on his own. And then Jesus, he had been speaking about Lazarus' death, but his disciples thought he meant natural sleep. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Okay? All right. I'm not going to be intuitive. I'm not going to be poetic. I'm just going to tell you what's going down here. Lazarus is dead. And for your sake, I am glad I was not there. Now, here's the confusing thing. The very moment we want God there, he's saying, I'm glad I wasn't there. So I think this is the dilemma. We want God there in our suffering. We want God there in our pain. We want God to answer our prayers the moment we need them. And it's almost as if God isn't as urgent as we are. And Jesus said, I'm glad I wasn't there for your sake, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Let's go now. Have you ever wanted God to do something big in your life. You know, like a miracle. We don't use that language really lightly, but have you ever wanted God to do something like a miracle in your life or answer a huge prayer? You know, the dilemma is we want God to do something huge while keeping our lives really small. We want a miracle, we just don't want the context for the miracle. We want God to show up in our life every time we experience the smallest amount of pain without realizing that that pain may actually be making us stronger and more resilient and more powerful as human beings. And Jesus saying, I'm glad I wasn't there because I need to build a deeper faith in you. See, it may be that God isn't showing up in the timetable that you have or that I have because God's trying to do a deeper work in us than we want. And then his disciples lean into this, and Thomas responds. Thomas doesn't say a lot, but when he says something, it's always really cynical. Then Thomas, known also as Didymus, said to the rest of his disciples, I love this. This is my favorite line in this whole story. Let us also go that we may die with him. I love the optimism. It's like, some people are worried about why they're suffering, and Thomas, all right, let's just follow him. Because it's going to get worse. I started thinking, what causes suffering in the world? I can at least break down 4 different categories that would allow us not to blame God. One huge area of suffering are the choices you make. One area of suffering in my life are the bad choices I make. I mean, frankly, I look back at my life, and most of my pain as an adult, most of my suffering as an adult are the result of bad choices I made. How about you? You want to blame other people, you want to blame God, you want to blame someone, you want to blame the man, you want to blame the institution, but really, it just came down to you. You were just stupid. And I tell you, it's like, Jesus, he died for your sins, but he didn't die for your stupidity. Your stupidity just keeps right on going. You have to decide to stop being stupid. And sometimes we want God to eliminate our suffering, and God goes, could you just tone down the stupidity? Stop making stupid choices. If you make destructive choices, don't be surprised when you have a destructive life. So a huge part of suffering are just the choices we make. But there's another side to this. A large part of my suffering are the bad choices I've made, but another part of my suffering are the bad choices other people have made that affect my life. You. Talking about you. You are almost a guarantee that I'm going to suffer in some way. But I'm a guarantee you're going to suffer. See, we have this way of affecting each other's lives, don't we? And I look back and I realize, you know, as an adult, most of my suffering was a result of the choices I made. But when I was young, most of my suffering was a result of the choices other people made. And that's the part that sometimes we can't get over. Isn't it horrible that some of the deepest wounding in your life, you didn't choose it? Someone else made a choice without regard to you as a human being, and they damaged you, they hurt you, they wounded you, they broke you by their choices. And then in a self-destructive pattern, you made choices that hurt other people. See, sometimes we need to step back and just own the fact that others are suffering because of the bad choices we've made. And then there's this third category. This is a really frustrating category. Not the bad choices I make, or not the bad choices other people make that bring suffering in my life, but just the bad things that seem to happen that we can't make sense of. You know what people call fate and nature, right? Disappointment and disaster. Sometimes things just don't work out. You pursue a career and it doesn't work out. You work for that promotion, it doesn't work out. You fall in love and they don't fall in love with you. And a lot of life is in this space, it's out of our control. It's not the fault of the people in Bandiachi that a tsunami came and destroyed their world. And sometimes we try to impose the anger of God on the catastrophic dynamic of nature. Now, sometimes it's a combination. Rain comes, cliffs fall, mansions are destroyed. That's nature, but you kind of built it there. So it's also your choice. There's a combination of things, right? But sometimes you might be on an airplane, and nothing you did resulted in the fact that that pilot made decisions that cost all of your life. See, sometimes it has nothing to do with the choices you make or the choices other people make. You find out you have cancer. You find out that you have a terminal disease. Someone you love is lost, and it's just a part of life. And we try to make sense of that. But you know what's odd? A lot of people stop believing in God because of what they consider fate. But you never give up on the universe. I hear people going, you know, the universe is for me, but I don't trust God. Right? You never talk about the universe in a negative way. You never hear me go, I'm angry with the universe. You don't really hear that. There's not a lot of bitterness against the universe, a lot of bitterness against God. In fact, people who don't believe in God, who believe in the universe, are mad at God and not the universe. But I want you to know something. The universe isn't for you if God isn't for you. See, the universe is only for you because God is for you. But then there's this fourth category that really bothers me. There's a fourth reason you might actually be suffering. You might be suffering because you're doing something right. Which is the catch-22. Okay, I'm going to suffer if I do something wrong. And I'm going to suffer if someone else does something wrong that affects my life. Then I'm going to suffer just because I exist, because everything's gone wrong. And now I might actually suffer because I'm doing everything right. Which is really sort of depressing. Because it seems like whatever choice we make, there's suffering. Here's the reality. Life is filled with suffering. And we want God to give us the escape route from suffering. We want God to give us the way around suffering, and God wants to teach us how to walk through suffering and how to mature in suffering. So Jesus doesn't show up on time. Thomas says, all right, let's just all go and die. Let's do the right thing and suffer. And on his arrival, and by the way, see, I don't want you to think that I'm asking you to give your life to Jesus or trust your life to Jesus so that you don't suffer. I want you to follow Jesus so you stop suffering for making bad choices, but start suffering for making good ones. Because it's not the suffering that will destroy you. It's that there's no meaning to your suffering. Verse 17, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. A little late. Now, Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem. In other words, Jesus could have gotten there. And many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. But when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him. But Mary stayed at home because she was probably angry. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. I think that's what so many of us have actually said to God in the secret moments of our soul. God, if you had showed up, I didn't have to go through this. If you'd been here, my brother would not have to die. But I love how she responds so powerfully. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. So in other words, you should have been here. If you'd been here, it would have been better. But I still know you could do something. I don't know what, but I know that if you ask God, he'll do whatever you ask. And Jesus says, your brother will rise again. What a great response. But then she pulls back and says, well, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection in the last day, but he's dead now. And then Jesus looks at her and says, no, you don't understand. You think the resurrection is a time, but the resurrection is a person. He says, Jesus says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing me will never die. And I love this. He says, do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world. And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, and he is asking for you. I never heard him ask for her. Maybe Martha just thought Mary could get Jesus to do what she could not do. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not entered the village, but they were still in the place where Martha had met him. And when the Jews who had been there with Mary in the house comforting her noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, and here's the question I think we all ask, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. See, this is the fundamental question of our souls. God, how is it possible that I could suffer like this if you're actually with me? When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him, he asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. In verse 35 is the most beautiful and succinct and powerful verse in the scriptures. Jesus wept. See, I think that we have been spending too much time blaming God for all the suffering in the world. And it's sort of an interesting reversal of roles. We act as if God is the author of suffering, that God is the instigator of human pain. The reality is that we are the cause of our suffering, and that God has come into our suffering and weeps for us. And instead of us getting mad at God, saying, God, why would you allow so much suffering in the world? It should be God getting mad, saying, why would you allow so much suffering in the world? I want you to know God did not create a world where we were supposed to hate each other and kill each other. God did not create a world where one person has so much food they're a glutton and another is starving and cannot make it through the day. God did not create a world where one person has 10 houses and another has none. God did not create a world with injustice. We did. We created this world. And we keep trying to fix it by forcing people to do the right thing. But I don't know if you've realized, but that has not worked well in human history. You cannot manage human behavior. You have to change the human heart. And Jesus wept, and the Jews said, see how he loved him. They knew that Jesus loved Lazarus. And here's the paradox, the very next line. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? And the answer is yes. But why didn't you? It would have been so easy for me that day when the doctor looked at me and said, you have cancer, for me to look at God and say, God, why? Why should I have cancer? Why not like the other person? There's someone worse than me in the world that should suffer more than me. Isn't that the way our minds kind of think sometimes? But the reality is that it's troubling, because when God does one good thing for someone, it doesn't always cause celebration. We're going, why would God do that for them and not for me? And that's what they're saying. Well, Jesus loved him, but couldn't he have done something about this? You see, what we keep wanting God to do is to deal with the symptoms of the human condition. Suffering is a symptom of the human condition. Suffering is the result of our souls gone bad, of the brokenness of who we are. Suffering is the external reflection of the emptiness of the human soul. And because we're broken, because we're wounded, because we've been hurt and betrayed, because we're filled with anger and bitterness, we wound each other and hurt each other, and we perpetuate the darkness that all of us want to be free from. I didn't really lead you to the very end of the story where Jesus speaks Lazarus' name and raises him from the dead. Because you see, this moment is just a small microcosm of history. And a lot of us don't understand that Jesus has the power over death, and that time is just a small parenthesis in the middle of eternity. But what we do need to understand is that God walks among us, loving us, caring about us, weeping over us. And then I have people say, well, yeah, but that's Jesus. I like Jesus, but I'm not really crazy about God. I hear this all the time. I'm okay with Jesus. I don't like God. In fact, I don't like anything in the Old Testament. I don't like that God. I'm for the New Testament God. It's almost as if God went to therapy, got over like his anger issues. He closed out Malachi, said, okay, I'm going to go do some counseling, get my head together. And then he comes back in Matthew and says, okay, I'm all good. I'm over the disappointment with you as humanity, and now I'm just all about love. But I want you to know God has always been all about love. I want you to hear some of the words described about God in Psalm 145:8. Listen to this. The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and rich in love. I love this. The Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and rich in love. Some of you actually grew up believing that God was quick to anger and slow in love or poor in love. But I want you to know that God is slow to anger, He is rich in love, and He is gracious and compassionate. And that's the God in the Old Testament they're talking about. In Jeremiah 31:3, God says this, and the Lord appeared to us in the past saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. This is God talking to us, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. This is how I'm pastored to you. I have drawn you with my unfailing kindness. You may not even realize it. You've been running from God, but God has been chasing you down. But love will run faster than your fear and catch you. In Hosea chapter 11, verse 3 and 4, he describes it like this. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk. God speaks as if he's a father or a mother holding their child. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by the arms, but they did not realize it. They did not realize it was I who healed them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love. To them, I was like one who lifts a little child to the cheek, and I bent down to feed them. You may not even realize how much love God has already sent your way. See, here's the crazy thing about God. When you don't love Him, He still loves you. When you don't believe in Him, He still believes in you. When you're running from Him, He's still running after you. God is like this notorious lover. You just cannot get Him off your back. He's just going to keep coming your way. He's going to keep pounding and pounding and pounding at your hardened heart, at your broken heart, at your empty soul. He's going to keep pounding at you, saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. A few years ago, I had an opportunity to work on a film. I love Ridley Scott. And I got a call and said, hey, would you read the script that he's working on and send some notes? I said, sure. Be happy to do that for Wrigley. And it was Exodus, Gods, and Kings, and that's why they called me, because, you know, I read the Bible and know a little bit about it. And so they want some input. They're having some problems with the script. And when I read the script, I knew that the writer was most likely an atheist. And then when I talked to him, I'm in my backyard trying to rewrite 2 different scenes. And while they're in Europe filming, and I said, these scenes don't work. And I go, well, what? We know, but why doesn't it work? I said, well, first of all, I can tell that the writer's an atheist. They go, how do you know that? I said, because he doesn't believe. And he doesn't want Moses to believe. And they said, what do you mean? I said, look, at the end, Moses still thinks it's a natural disaster, this act of nature that the sea is parted. Even if it was just a pure coincidence of nature, Moses' transformation would lead him to interpret that as the hand of God. Any good writer would know that. But he's prejudiced. He doesn't want us to believe. I said, but the problem is really the God character. And they go, yeah, we're trying to work on that. I said, yeah, and Christians are intuitive enough to go, okay, you chose a small boy to personify God, calling him Malak. Oh, it's a device. I think you're going to be okay. The problem is that you don't like God. The problem is that in your story, God's a bad guy. And I go, why would God exist if he were a bad guy? I said, I'm not trying to get you to believe. Maybe I am. But really, I'm just asking you a question as a writer. I said, why would, let's say, okay, God doesn't exist. And we created him, because in the story, here's the little clue that I could tell they didn't believe God was real. Moses slips, falls, hits his head on a rock, God appears. Hallucination. I said, all right, why would we hallucinate God? What would be the human intention around creating the idea of God? It's because we feel guilty that we're not living up to our human ideals. So we would create the character of God to speak into our fear, to make us courageous. We would create this character of God so that he would elevate us to our most heroic life, our most noble life, a life of integrity, a life of honor. I said, do you remember the movie Braveheart? I should have said Gladiator, I said Braveheart. I said, remember you had William Wallace and you had Robert the Bruce? And Robert the Bruce was the king, in a sense, the nobleman who should have taken up the charge of bringing freedom to his people, but he didn't. And William Wallace was the one who should not have, but he did. And in fact, William Wallace was the hero until Robert the Bruce stood up and stepped up and became the hero. Then Wallace died so that Robert the Bruce could live the life he was created to live. So that's the difference between God and Moses. See, Moses is Robert the Bruce. He escaped slavery in Egypt, ran for his life, lived on his own for 40 years, and took no responsibility for the freedom of his people. God is William Wallace, who's going to call Moses to live up to his most heroic self. See, in the story, it's not Moses who runs into God and says, I've been looking for you. Why are you letting this happen? There's so much suffering. Have you seen what's going on in Egypt? That's why we act. God, pay attention. See, it wasn't Moses going, we need you to intervene. Stop just hanging out in creation. It's God who intervenes in Moses' life. He says, take off your shoes, this is holy ground, because everywhere God is holy. He says, I have heard the cries of my people. This is God speaking. I have heard their cries. In other words, Moses, how could you be deaf to their cries? I have heard their cries. And I am going to deliver my people, and I'm sending you. Oh, now I see how it works. How can God exist when there's suffering in the world? It's because we introduced suffering to the world. We are the authors of suffering. But God is the perfecter of it. And he calls us to step into the suffering that we would ignore, to be the healers that only he can be. He says to Moses, I have heard their cries, and I am going to deliver them. I want you to know something. God cares about your pain. He sees your wounds. He weeps over you. And God is not indifferent to your cries. But what happens so oftentimes is, you see, we are supposed to be the Moses to God's Israel. We are the ones who are supposed to hear the cries and are to be God's instrument to bring healing to a world that is filled with suffering and pain. Moses' lack of action looked like God's indifference. But God always cared. He always cared. And then it makes perfect sense why Jesus died on the cross. Why it had to be this way. It's almost as if God knew our biggest question would be, how can God exist? How can a loving God exist and allow so much suffering in the world? And God's best answer was to take on flesh and blood and step into our suffering and bear our wounds and carry our bruises and allow himself to be broken for us. God's answer to that question, where were you in my suffering, is I was suffering for you. Jesus is not an indifferent God looking from a distant place, trying to understand your pain. He is the God who steps into our suffering and carries it on himself. And what the scriptures tell us is by his wounds, we are healed. And there's some of you here, that's what you need. You just need to be healed. You act like the struggle is to believe, but it's not. It's the trust. You thought your question is, does God exist? But it's not. It's, does God care? I want you to know that Jesus is God's declaration to you But you will never be alone in your pain. You will never be alone in your suffering. That he is the God who is with you. But more than that, he has taken that pain. He has taken your wounds. He has taken the suffering and taken it upon himself. And he took it to the grave. He took it to the grave. And then he rose from the dead. And he comes to bring healing and hope and life to us all. Would you just bow your heads with me just for a moment? Just close your eyes and let's just make this a sacred moment. This is a sacred space because God is here. And you might be here today and there's a lot of pain in your life. Maybe you've been really hurt by people who use the name of God. I don't know, maybe you grew up in church and you carry some wounds. Maybe there's bitterness and unforgiveness that you've allowed to consume your heart. And I want to invite you today to trust Jesus with your life. To cross that line of faith and just to know that God cares about you, that he loves you, that you matter. And instead of running from you, instead of walking away from your pain, walking away from your sin, walking away from your brokenness, he's leaning right into you, saying, trust me with your life. So right now, if you're ready to trust Jesus with your life, I just want you to pray a simple prayer. It's just the beginning of a conversation with God. Just one sentence right now. Jesus, I give you my life. Just start there. There's so much more that needs to be said, but just start here. Jesus, I give you my life. And in that, just give him everything. Give him your fears, give him your doubts, give him your pain, give him your bitterness. Give him your disappointments. Give him everything. Give him your hopes and dreams. Give him your future and your relationships. Give him everything you are right now. Just say, Jesus, I give you my life. And let him give you his life right now. Just right now, just pray that. Jesus, I give you my life. If that's your prayer, I want to pray for you. So before we leave this place, I want to give you an opportunity to say, yes, Erwin, that's my choice, my decision. That's my step. I'm giving my life to Jesus. And I'd like for you to pray for me right now. I just want you to hold your hand up high and say, that's me. Beautiful. Wonderful. Anyone else? Beautiful. Just hold it up high. I want to see you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Anyone else? Yes. This is your moment. Jesus, I give you my life. Anyone else right now? Okay, you put your hands down. I'm going to ask someone else too. There's some of you here and you have so much wounding in your life. There's so much hurt. You desperately need healing in your soul. You know, it's easy to see when someone loses a limb or breaks an arm. It's so hard to see when a soul is broken. And if you're here and you say, man, I need God to bring healing into my life. I need Jesus to heal the deep wounds of my soul. I want you to do something a little different. I want you right now, I just want you to stand up and I'm going to pray for you, if that's you. I want you to take a moment of courage. Beautiful. I want you to stand right now and say, that's me. I just need God to heal me. I need Jesus to meet me where I am. I'm just tired of hiding it. Just too much energy to hide all the brokenness inside of me. Beautiful. Anyone else? I want to pray for you. This is your moment. I want you to know that Jesus is the healing your soul needs. That through his death on the cross, through his suffering, he can give you the strength for your suffering. Just stand right now. I want to pray for you. And if any of you who raised your hand want to stand, you can stand right now. I want to pray for all of you right now. Just stand right now. Beautiful, wonderful. Just stand right now. Anyone else before I pray? Wonderful. Beautiful. Anyone else before I pray? This is why we're here. Jesus, I thank you that you stepped into our pain, into our suffering, that through your death on the cross, you've not given us a way around the suffering. You've given us a way through. May we receive the power of your crucifixion and of your resurrection. May each person standing right now find healing right now, God. May they find hope in their life. May you breathe into them, just God, the wonder of life. I pray that right now, God, they would just feel you killing death inside of them, moving out of their souls despair and depression, sorrow, anxiety. I pray that you would fill them with hope and joy and peace and love. For you, Jesus, are the resurrection and the life. May you in this moment fill them with yourself, that they may live and be fully alive. And God, I'm so grateful that we not only know the answer to does God exist, we know the answer to does God care. And I thank you, God, that you've enveloped us in your love, you've wrapped us in your presence, and that we belong to you. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. Can we just thank God for all those standing even now? Amen. Thank you, God. Amen. Beautiful. All right, we're going to continue the series next week, Life's Toughest Questions. I have no idea what next week's question is going to be. I know that I'm going to get a lot of great questions this week. I want to stay open to what conversation we need to have. I want to encourage you. Go to your friends who are atheists, who are agnostics, who are angry with God, who don't believe in God and are angry at God, and ask them, what's the question? That if someone could lean into that question and maybe give an answer, that it would open up your soul to God. Look, I'm not deceiving myself. It's not that my answer is going to be that extraordinary. I just believe that if we dive into these important questions, we're creating room for God to speak to all of us. And so let's lean into this. And this week, have conversations about this topic. Go to these passages and reflect on them and become an instrument of healing in a city where so many people are so broken and so hurting and do not know where to turn. Next week, let's bring people here. Bring your friends, bring your enemies. Let's just get them all here. That's this.
You are my hope. You are mine. 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 You are my
Come on, hey. Mosaic, together, can we thank Pastor Erwin for just giving us such an incredible message today? So powerful. And we know there are some of you here today that made a powerful, incredible decision for the first time. You said yes to Jesus. You opened up your life to him. You let his love just overwhelm you. And we want to celebrate that decision with you. We want to help you take your next steps. So if that was you and you raised your hand, when we go out the back, there's a table in an area called Next Step. And you'll see some just the friendliest people we ever meet holding up a Bible like this. It's our gift to you. We want to put it in your hands just to help you as you start this new journey of faith. And then I also want to encourage you, if you stood up, if you took that huge leap of faith just to be prayed over, one of the things that we do here at Mosaic, and we always are reminding each other, that we do not do life alone. That God gave us the gift of community. So if that's here and you're just ready to connect, be more involved, come and find us at the Next Step. We want to help you do that. And if you're a digital person, you're like, I don't know about people yet, then you can also, if you just text Mosaic to 41411, that's an easy way for us to also to help you. Hey, we love you guys so much. It's been an incredible day. Let's pack this room out next week. Invite your friends as we continue Life's Toughest Questions. God bless.